Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. Today in this video I'm going to check the Diatone GTB339 micro brushless racing quadcopter. In this video I'm going to go over its features and specs and then head outdoors and test it using different Lipo batteries and also using different configurations and versions of Betaflight. The GTB339 is part of the new Diatone Cube family, which is based on the GTB339, 329, 239 and 229. The difference between the versions is only the wheelbase of the frame and the motors that are being used, and except that, all the other components are identical. The wheelbase of both 339 and 329 models is 120mm and they can support up to 3-inch propellers. The GTB 239 and 229 models feature a wheelbase of 105mm and it can support up to 2.5-inch propellers. The middle digit stands for the number of supported battery cells. The 3-inch versions feature 1105 motors and the 2.5-inch versions feature 1103 motors. On the GTB 339 you can find the 5500 kV version of the MAMBA 1105 motors and it supports 2 and 3S Lipo batteries. The GTB 329 is using the 6500 kV version of these motors and can support only 2S Lipo batteries. All the models are only available in plug-and-play versions, which means that you will need to get your own receiver. A 4-pins connector is already pre-soldered to the flight controller, and you also get in this harness for connecting an FrSky RXSR receiver. This connector is soldered to the 5V output, and it's going to be pretty much impossible for you to add a DSMX compatible receiver. In terms of the other used components in this quadcopter, on the top you can find the Runcam Nano 2 Nano FPV camera. On the bottom of the 16x16 stack, you can find a 13A BLLES 4-in-1 ESC that, just like the flight controller, supports Lipo batteries between 2 to 4 cells. On the center, you can find the Diatone MAMBA F411 Nano F4 flight controller, which by default comes pre-flashed with Betaflight 3.5.7. On top of it, inside this adapter, which you can also buy separately, you can find the TBS Nano Pro 32 VTX, which supports of course smart audio and has a maximum output strength of 400mW. By default, this VTX comes locked to 25mW, and if you'd like to set it to 400mW, you will have to unlock it. I reviewed this VTX separately, so if you'd like to learn how to unlock it and know more about this VTX, feel free to check out my video, which is linked over here. Inside its box, along with the quadcopter, you can find some stickers, zip ties, which are always useful, screws for the propellers, and in total you get in 10. I already assembled 8 of them, so you get in 2 extra ones, a spare high quality battery velcro strap, and you already have one installed on the bottom of the quadcopter. You also get in a buzzer, which you will have to install yourself, and the appropriate connector, which you will have to solder to the flight controller. In addition, you also get in extra screws in different sizes, another 4-pins connector for the ready receiver in case you would like to use a different receiver than the FrSky RXSR. And finally, you're also potentially getting a set of these bi-bladed HQ Prop 3-inch propellers, and I said potentially because unfortunately my set was missing a propeller. So on the upcoming flight footage I use these Emax Avan Mini 3-inch 3-bladed propellers, which I really like and I highly recommend. You should note that these antenna tubes are not included, and if you'd like to use an FrSky RXSR receiver, you will need to get them separately, and if you'd like to use a TBS receiver, you can mount its Immortal antenna on the top over here. In terms of dimensions, the GTB339 weighs 67.3 grams, not including a battery, 96 grams including a GNB 520mAh 2S LHV battery, and 93.2 grams including an Ishin 300mAh 3S LHV battery. The distance between the right motors and the left ones is 85mm, and of course, since the frame is shaped like a cube, the distance between the back motors and the front ones is 85mm as well. The wheelbase of the frame is 120mm, and just like its name, its frame features a cube shape, and these are reinforced arms that are not going to break easily in case of a crash. The thickness of these arms is 4mm, and the width is 1.6mm. The micro USB connector of the flight controller is located at the front of the quadcopter, and inside the kit you can find this M2 screw and plastic spacer, which after being mounted will block the micro USB port. And even though it's going to be a hassle to configure the quadcopter each time because you will need to disassemble the spacer, you still need to mount it because otherwise the 3D printed canopy is not going to be properly mounted, and then you're going to experience a lot of jello in your flight. On the back of this 3D printed TPU canopy, you can find a nice mount for a linear FPV antenna. As I mentioned before, also a mount for TBS and motor antennas, and also cutouts for the not included antenna tubes. The next thing I've done is to head outdoors and test the Diatone GTB339 using different types of 2S and 3S Lipo batteries. At first I had some issues with the quadcopter spinning out of control when it was flashed with Betaflight 3.5.7 using the default settings, and it mainly happened using a 3S Lipo battery, but after upgrading to Betaflight 4.1.0 this issue disappeared and the quadcopter flew better after I got the recommended settings to Betaflight 4.1.0, and I'm going to include these settings and also the default settings for Betaflight 3.5.7 in the description of the video. After testing all these batteries, I can tell you that in my experience the quadcopter flew best with 300 mAh 2S and 3S LHV batteries. You can also fly it with a 2S 520 mAh LHV battery, but if you're going to use the 3S version, it's going to be a little bit too heavy, and overall, sticking to 300 mAh LiPo batteries is going to give you the best results. In terms of flight time, I got about 3 minutes when using the 300 mAh 2 and 3S LHV batteries, and since I did push the throttle, this result is pretty good. And of course, if you're not going to push the throttle, your result is going to be extended, and maybe also if you're going to use the included HQ Prop bi-blade propellers, but unfortunately I didn't get to test them out. Overall, I can tell you that I really enjoyed flying this quadcopter. It's fun to fly and it can also get very fast. The experience is very similar to flying a 5-inch quadcopter, and of course you can also adjust the camera according to your flying style. So if you're a beginner, you can set the camera to a very low angle, and I recommend to stick to 2S LiPo batteries. And if you are an advanced pilot, you can put the camera way up high, and when using 3S LiPo batteries, you can get very fast. In addition, I also crashed this quadcopter a couple of times and nothing happened to it. These wasn't major crashes, but still I can estimate that this quadcopter, since it's very lightweighted and also has a very sturdy frame, is not going to break easily. So now I'm going to show you the flight footage, and as always, if you have any questions about the Diatone GTB339, feel free to ask them in the comment section down below. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you like this video, and consider subscribing to my channel and hitting the notifications bell if you're not already subscribed. See you in my next videos, and goodbye.